my mom and dad, I know they love me. I know they love me with all my heart. They provided for me. They put the roof over my head. My mother was an alcoholic. And so many times we would feel the wrath of that pain in her life. When she would drink to the drunken stupor, we would hear the pain in her life of that dominant father that she had in her life that would beat her with a garden hose, would even knocked her out and fractured her skull with a 2x4. And all the pain that she had when she went to residential school and day school. But by not dealing with those pains, we felt that pain. Yeah, we were dirty rotters sometimes. We were little snotty-nosed brats. And sometimes we deserved the lickings. But during those times, sometimes we felt the wrath of that pain of my mother. And we would get beaten, especially my sister. We were the two oldest. A lot of times in my life, we ended up raising my two younger brothers because my mother was always drunk and my father was always working. He never drank at all. All my life, I never seen him drink. He's a World War veteran. Something happened when he was at war because I just knew this man that was very distant, wasn't closed. I couldn't get in his space. But at home, there's times where I was ashamed to go to school. We'd have welts on our legs because their favorite tool of punishing us was that red willow. Boy, when we pushed her buttons to the point we knew we were going to get it when she's walking to that willow bush. And we would get it. And I would have wilts. My sister and I would have wilts in our legs. We didn't even want to wear shorts to go to PE because we were ashamed of the stuff that was going on. Because we didn't want to explain why we got the wilts. So we always went to my grandparents' place. Always went there, and that's where we saw the love and felt the love. My dad was always working to put a roof over our head. And during that time, my father, he would made a promise to my mother's family when they got married that he would never take her away from her. So we always went back to the reserve. We lived off reserve our whole life because my father and my uncle went to residential school and they ran away after a while. Because of that's all they were. They said, that's all we were. We were just mules. That's all we were. We didn't even go to school. We were packing wood, we were packing water, we were looking after the garden so that they could feed the rest of the children in the residential school. We never even went to school. And tried to speak, and we got whipped. We constantly got beaten. And so they ran away, 9 years old, 9 and 10 years old, and they ran away from residential school. And they got caught, and they got beaten again. Time went on, and they took off, and this time they didn't even look for them. And they walked literally over 250 miles, 9 years old, to get back to their house. And when they got there, my grandparents didn't even know they were left. It was, I think, about a week by the time they walked to their trap line. That's where they were. And they said, no, we got to get you back because we don't want to go to jail. And then my father would tell them about what happened in residential school, and they said, no. I heard a testimony of how that pain and the anger towards the parents because they never stopped them from taking you. But there's reasons there why, too, because our people were either shot and killed or else they were put in prison because it was law that they had to go to residential school. And so in order for them not to go to residential school, they had to be disenfranchised. They had to sign a paper saying, I'm no longer Indian. And so we lived off reserve all our lives. And so all my life, I was trying to find out who this man was, fighting for my identity and living in two different worlds. Living in the white world, I didn't belong. And then we went back to the reserve. I started seeing the pain in the reservations too, the people that was there. And my heart really went out to them, but we didn't belong there either. Because they always thought that we were going to get their money or going to get whatever little they had. And so we never belonged. And I fought. I grew up with these fists. I grew up protecting myself, but also hating who I was, believing those lies that I'm a dirty Indian, just ugly. And so I struggle with that. And then one day, going back to reserve, my parents, they went out to a dance and whatnot, and so we stayed with my grandmother, and a lot of my mother had a lot of aunts, or a lot of sisters. And so we went there one night, and it was a cold, these old houses that was insulated with sawdust. So when the sawdust settled, the top of the house, there was just nothing. And so a cold air came in. And so that one winter evening, my aunt, come, sleep with me, keep me warm. And because I was looking for that love, I wanted that love. And she called me over, and I thought, yeah, she loves me. So I went and curled up with her in her bed, and before I fell asleep, I was sexually abused by my own aunt. And I struggle with that. At 9, 10 years old, not even understanding what just happened to me. And so I struggle with that. And so I hid it, and I buried it, because I couldn't tell anybody. I mean, we had so many family secrets that I couldn't even add in. So that was my secret. And so I started living my life that way. But 12, I started drinking. All my childhood, I kept saying, I'm not going to drink, seeing what my mother was going through. But I ended up drinking to cover up that pain. And then my grandmother, my grandfather both died. The glue that held our family together was gone. And it disappeared. I was sexually abused again at 12, 13 years old. And my life just went out of spiral. Started drinking early, fighting, trying to find out and hating this person, hating that I was an Indian, hating that I was a man, hating, and got to the point as the deep longings, disappointment, that rage and that fear just became a big part of my life. And through that rage and fear, I had this false image of myself, that I was just this dirty little Indian that nobody wanted to love. And so through that false image that I created, hating what God created, that I started creating this belief system that nobody loves me. Because I didn't get it from my mom, I didn't get it from my dad. And anybody else that wanted me for something else, from my body. And so through that, I started creating these lies and vows to protect this little boy that's been wounded, this little boy that was wounded inside. And through that, I started creating this goal. I'm going to keep everybody at arm's length. I'm going to keep everybody, that nobody can come into my space anymore. I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me.